So, Lost in Space is one of my favorite bad movies of all time. It's so bad that I didn't really even recognize its badness until I saw this movie several years back. This is one of those movies where nobody in the production seemed to have cared about what they were making. All they cared about was dragging another 1960s series out the hole to revamp for profit. It's like Star Trek 2009, but it couldn't get away with its dumb excuse to be repackaged for normal mainstream audiences. Now, I was never an avid watcher of the original series. I was more of a Star Trek person that I used to watch with my parents, but I hardly paid attention to anything that was pertaining to Lost in Space until this movie. But for anyone who's actually a fan of it, I empathize completely with you if you thought that this 1998 film did zero justice to the original series. This could possibly be insulting for the fans, especially since despite the film making more than Titanic opening night, that didn't really matter after the fan reaction came in. Any plans for a sequel were understandably scrapped, and they tried to reboot this baby back in 2004, but the pilot never got greenlit, and Netflix finally got their hands on it, and apparently there's supposed to be a third season, so there's that. I think one of the biggest problems with this movie is that I feel the writers of the 1998 Lost in Space put their backs into a corner of how to approach this series. Tonally, they weren't really sure what degree of camp they were going for, or weren't really sure how to even pilot this series for movies. And this is very clear by the chain of events in the film. And this is also since writer Akiva Goldsman is one of the most inconsistent writers that I've ever seen. Yeah, let's get the guy who just wrote Batman and Robin in 1997 to write a Lost in Space reboot. Like, seriously? But hey, he did write A Beautiful Mind and Cinderella Man. But then he wrote the film adaptation of I, Robot with Will Smith, and he also wrote I Am Legend, and The Da Vinci Code, and Angels and Demons. Maybe he needed Russell Crowe in the films he wrote would have been a little better, I don't know. And director Stephen Hopkins hasn't really done anything notable in his career except the critically panned Predator sequel and, well, of course, this movie. So apparently this is just another case like Godzilla 1998 that provided proof that there was no reason for this movie to exist in the first place if they weren't going to do it right. Now let's just get this over with because I got other things I could be doing right now. So the movie is already off to a bad start with John, played by William Hurt, explaining that the nations of the planet united to survive a dying Earth, which we never got any sort of visual information of, we just had to have it lazily explained to us.
The world's rich with drinkable water and breathable air. The Hypergate was our best hope to colonize space, our best hope for survival.
But out of nowhere, a terrorist group called the Global Sedition started shooting at them for some reason. So what's the Global Sedition and why do they matter? Why did they band together and start attacking? What do they want? And what is this war over anyway? Is it like the Star Wars prequels where the Republic and the Separatist movement are just shooting at each other for no clear reason on either side? Also, they explain that the only planet that's habitable is Alpha Prime.
As you are aware, Alpha Prime is the only other habitable planet yet detected by Deep Space Recon,
which requires a hypergate that they're currently building to get there so that they can get everyone there quickly instead of risking long-winded space travel, because the results of using hyper engines on ships could lead to random locations in space. Okay, that's fine, but my question is, why are they wasting time building a hypergate when they can just terraform another planet like Mars or something? You mean to tell me that Alpha Prime is conveniently that habitable that no other planets in our solar system are livable? Heck, in 1971, Carl Sagan proposed the idea that Mars is habitable, and he even wrote a specific process of how it could be done, and that's still being considered today. And how exactly are they contacting the research colony on Alpha Prime anyway? If they're using a hypergate to get there, then there's no way they have any other prior contact that far in space. What if something happens, like a meteor shower or some sort of natural phenomenon that affects Alpha Prime? How will the research colony send word back to Earth, especially since the hypergate is still in the process of being built here and they've yet to even start to build the one from Alpha Prime? If hyperspeeding with ships is a risk, and how do the research colonists even make it successfully to Alpha Prime? What happened to the ones that randomly got transported in some other end of space? Do they not matter, like at all? Bit of a risk you're taking there, homie. But this whole thing makes even less sense when we learn that the Global Sedition is also building a hyperdrive to colonize Alpha Prime.
The new Global Sedition knows the truth as well as we do. They're building their own hypergate. They hope to colonize Alpha Prime first. If they're successful, Western demons like you and I, Major West, will be left on Earth to die.
So why in God's name would the nations of Earth risk going to the same planet that their enemy forces want? Aren't you just putting yourself in a position where you'll be once again fighting these guys only in a different location? And how are the Global Sedition more successful in their goals and the majority of the nation haven't even gotten as far as they did, I assume? And how did the nations that banded together have this information and haven't stopped the Global Sedition ahead of time? But the Sedition is still curb stomping them. How large is the Global Sedition? We don't know much about them to really know how big of a threat they pose, but apparently apparently United Nations on Earth just aren't as big, I guess, or they just flat out suck and haven't even dealt with the enemy first before considering colonization on a different planet. I mean, they have 20 freaking years, then worry about everything else. But hey, what do I know? I've never been one of the members of the United Nations of the planet or something. How are they still making progress but are getting shot at by the sedition on like almost every day? Makes no sense. And are the global sedition mutants and humans? Because Smith is a member of the global sedition and tries to sabotage the Robinsons' mission, and he's human. I mean, for now. But Joey is fighting the mutants, so I assume it's an amalgamation of humans and mutants. But where do the mutants even come from? Are they from a different planet? What planet are they from? So Joey has been hired to replace John's original pilot, Daniels, who they say was sick with the flu when in reality he was murdered. And the public is under wraps about this information.
Captain Daniels doesn't have the flu, does he, sir?
Captain Daniels was murdered in his apartment last night. The flu story's a couple we've had the press.
I flew with Mike.
But why would they cover that? Well, isn't this something the public needs to know about since it could involve the sedition? It won't affect how the public feels about a replaced pilot. It's just kind of weird to me. So Joey and the General have a back and forth about his questionable choices during the space fight, and because he takes full pride in disobeying direct orders, he's been promoted to being a pilot for the Robinsons. Sure, makes sense, I guess. And then we're introduced to Dr. Zachary Smith, presented with the worst performance from Gary Oldman ever displayed in his career.
The sedition hired me to provide access to Daniel's apartment, and no more.
He teetered on over the top and cartoonish, but it resulted in him just having a bad Jonathan Harris impression on his shoulders. So an employer of the sedition, I guess, magically knows about the replaced pilot Joey. They don't explain how they know this, but they do. And now they're hiring Smith to infiltrate the Jupiter 2 and sabotage the mission. So I'm kind of confused. Are there various numbers of sedition members infiltrating the US Space Corps right now? If so, why do they need someone to get in the Jupiter and sabotage the mission? Why not just blow the ship up and just indefinitely prevent the Jupiter mission from following through? Just makes it easier than sending some guy to do it, because anything can happen that's not in the sedition's favor. I don't know. I mean, he kind of does by reprogramming the robot, but I'll get to that in a minute for why that don't make no sense. Okay, so I guess I'll have to introduce the characters real quick. We have the Robinson family, which comprises of 5 members. We have the stoic and boring John Robinson, who's the one leading the expedition. His flat and one-dimensional wife Maureen, who's acting as probably the worst out of everyone's. Judy Robinson, who is just somewhere in the background and only serves as a love interest for Joey. Will, who shockingly has a little more to do than everybody else. And Penny, who's nothing more than just annoying little pest, especially when she just vlogs her experiences. And that has nothing to do with the movie and doesn't really play into the story like at all. I'm serious. So John and Wes take a tour on the new Jupiter 2, and as they're doing this, Wes continues to complain. Oh, I'm sorry, I mean Joey. But 5 minutes later, he's impressed with their refined design.
Looks like somebody sprung for the full extras package on this beauty.
If you have to be a babysitter, it's not such a bad nursery.
I mean, but 4 out of the 6 of you are adults anyway, so who's he babysitting? I mean, what, 2 kids? One's a teenager and one's probably like, what, 8? And then we get into the most disinteresting chemistry ever put to films, and Joey starts flirting with John's oldest daughter right in front of him.
How you doing?
And John just seems to let it happen. Until, of course, she says dad, and that throws a hook at Joey to back down. So after John and Maureen share a pretty irrelevant scene that just lets us know how they feel about going on this Jupiter mission, and it shows that John will have a communication problem that we never see, I guess. But back with Smith, Smith prepares to sabotage the ship by hacking the robot and reprogramming it from protecting the Robinsons to killing them. Okay, so wait a second. So why is the robot even programmed with that option to specifically either kill or protect a certain group of people? I mean, it just seems a little convenient, don't you think? But regardless, Smith gets to work, and before he can leave the ship, his employer conveniently contacts him, verifying that he did the job. Okay, so now I'm to assume that his employer planned on him not returning. I guess it's not clear, but that's what it looks like because the communicator self-destructs and knocks Smith out unconscious. Okay, so now I'm confused. So is the global sedition turning on each other now? I mean, is there some sort of conflict among the terrorist organization? Why would they screw Smith over? It doesn't matter because he's stuck on the ship now for plot reasons. Now in the series, Smith was making adjustments and dealt with a guard, and he was just a victim of circumstance, which is why he was united with the Robinsons for the duration of the series. I mean, that makes a little more sense than this. So the family gets ready for their exciting space voyage, but before they can do that, they exchange bad dialogue, terrible attempts at banter, and one-dimensional chemistry. as expected.
What?
Vogue says this will be the style in 10 years.
Can we cut back on her oxygen so she's not quite so annoying when she wakes up?
Does he have to wake up at all?
Okay, that's it. I'm gonna turn this spaceship right.
Now the ship has this protective shell over the ship as Joey launches the Jupiter 2 in space, which doesn't make much sense, especially since it'll spend the next 10 years going into airlessness. I guess it's just a forced homage to the original Jupiter from the series, because the shell explodes in space and gives this reveal of the supposed to be awesome, cooler looking version of the original Jupiter 1, and now it's the Jupiter 2! Sure, whatever. So they're all in hypersleep in their Buzz Lightyear boxes. Joey continues to mope, whine like a toddler before finally shutting up and getting into the freaking pod.
8 years of flight training. 50 combat missions. So I can take the family camper on an interstellar picnic. I never liked these freezing tubes.
Get over yourself. So after everyone is asleep, Smith emerges and oh snap, he realizes that he's in space. Not only that, but the robot that he programmed only now decides to wake up and go on his killing spree to destroy the Robinson family.
Destroy cryosleep system.
Now I'm assuming that he programmed the robot to kill them while in their pods, right? Well, if that's the case, then why didn't he just hack and reprogram the pods to make them entrapped inside so that they never wake up? Because he relies on them for his own survival, which is obviously in character for Smith. But wouldn't it be easy to just reprogram the pods? How is that any different than a robot? So they try to stop the rampaging robot from wreaking havoc, but apparently it doesn't have an off switch like at all. And apparently if you jump on its back and attempt to find one, it has an electric defense mechanism that flies you right off of it. That's a smart safeguard in case this thing that's doing exactly what it is doing right now. So it gets ready to kill Penny and Marine, like I care. And Will reprograms the robot remotely with a device that he made, which will probably be the second useful thing this kid ever does in this movie.
Show off.
Except he saved you, so shut up, little girl. You know, it would really suck if Will didn't have that, because this weaponized and dangerous robot doesn't even have a simple off switch. Moving on. So as they're recooling from the unexpected attack, they discover Smith, who tries to make it seem like he was a victim of the accident also. Joey finds out though, and he ain't having it, until they learn that Judy is still stuck in the pod, so Smith advocates to help her out or he'll let her die.
Kill the girl! How much is your revenge worth, Major? I can save her life, but only if you give me your word as an officer that you will spare mine.
Which makes me wonder what gives him the audacity to negotiate if he's the reason they're in this predicament in the first place, including himself. And it'll fall back on him anyway. But whatever, Smith's life is spared for no reason and they help Judy while they also learn they're way off course. Uh-oh. You know, it's kind of convenient that this edition sends a doctor to sabotage their mission, because Judy definitely would have been screwed right now.
Do not mistake my deception for a character flaw. It is a philosophical choice, a profound understanding of the universe. It is a way of life.
What? So Judy is free and Smith tries to jumpstart her body because she's showing no signs of consciousness. And as this is happening, the Jupiter 2 is heading closer and closer to the sun, and everybody is screwed due to the strength of the sun's gravitational pull. So no matter what they do, they're still being pulled. But Joey decides that they engage their own hyperdrive through the sun, and the dialogue delivery really shows how serious this situation is.
The sun, then we go straight through it using your hyperdrive.
Engage the hyperdrive without a gate. It can be thrown anywhere in the galaxy.
Anywhere but here.
I mean, wow, like really. So they get to work and hyperdrive through the sun, which is both one of the coolest and stupidest things that I've ever seen in a movie. So wait, okay, hang on. Why don't they just plot their course instead of panicking that they're off course? I mean, you tell me that it's too late? Like, that's it? The ship has a warp drive, but not the technology to set a course on its own? Are there any ships in 2058 able to even have a course set for contingency purposes? Or maybe I'm just overthinking this. Hey, but what don't I overthink? So everybody is safe and sound and now are trapped in a random part of space, which John was afraid of. But yay, Judy is fine though. Wait, so hang on. So did Smith save her during the hyperspeed? Because we see that he's thrown off his feet and clearly wouldn't have had time to get back to her. So is this like a few minutes after the hyperdrive fiasco, or was this much later? Nah, whatever, move on. Hip hip hooray, she's alive. Smith saved Judy. So the film attributes pointless screen time to Will and Miss Annoying Voice. Will seems to be making a robot for plot reasons, and Miss Annoying Voice helps.
Never love anything, kiddo. Because you just end up losing it.
What does that even mean? Oh, wait, no, it's foreshadowing. Oh, I get it. God, this movie's trash. Meanwhile, John thinks they should just put Smith down like a dog.
Maybe I shouldn't let him live.
Now, I don't really disagree with this, even if he did save Judy. I mean, he is part of a terrorist organization after all.
But how can we bring civilization to the stars if we can't remain civilized? Right, Professor?
Sweetheart, what? Do you not realize that you're fighting the very thing Smith is in allegiance with? What do you mean remain civilized if the global sedition wants to live on the very planet you're trying to get everyone else on, and will blow you all to pieces before you even try to step foot on there first? You're at war, lady. So they end up seeing an abandoned ship called the Proteus, but notice that there's a weird thing they have to go through. And like the edgy, boneheaded pilot he is, Joey just goes right through, disregarding any safety or thought. Now this ship seems to actually be one of theirs, but in pretty bad shape. I wonder what's going on. And they run into a non-human space vessel that I'm assuming isn't mutant members of the global sedition? I guess just some random ship. Okay. Joey readies to approach Smith, and this is the only time that I thought annoying voice girl was adorable and endearing.
United Global Space Force requesting permission to see the prisoner.
Proceed. Major request.
I mean, she's a teenage girl with raging hormones and is developing an attraction to boys. And I thought that was communicated in a subtle, cute manner by Lacey Chabert, and I liked her character here. But why is Joey winking flirtatiously at a 13-year-old girl? Now, let me stop right here and say that I'm not dissing Lacey Chabert for her voice. I wasn't really sure her talking like this was a director's choice or not. So, I looked up the 1998 interview with Jay Leno.
Well, still, you know, we would sing with hairbrushes as our mic in front of our mirror, and that was sort of what I wanted to do. You know?
Her role in Party of Five.
Babe, it's Owen. I was just looking at it, and he fell down the stairs.
And also how she talks in Mean Girls in her voice now.
Yeah, Brutus is just as smart as Caesar. People totally like Brutus just as much as they like Caesar. And when did it become okay for one person to be the
Fun because I get to go to Rome and my...
And I can safely say that she naturally talks like this, much like my sister. Hello? Hey, say a couple of words for me real quick.
Couple of words for me real quick.
Okay, say something else.
Something else.
Say, this is how I talk.
This is how I talk. Wait.
Alright, thanks, Mom. Bye. Love you. So, back on track, Joey hands Smith a suit because for some weird reason they want him to go on the ship with them to make sure that they can keep an eye on him instead of just keeping him in the room locked away and have the kids just distance themselves from him.
Give me an excuse to kill you.
I mean, well, I have one, but we'd be jumping too far in the plot, which would make sense to kill him anyway. So before John gets ready to check out the ship, he learns that Will rewired the robot and now he's running on remote controlling. And the fact that a child was able to fix a rookie mistake that an industry couldn't when it came to how these robots are programmed and able to be reprogrammed is a pretty embarrassing thing for professional robot manufacturers to have to live with. So the adults go on the ship and check it out. And they still don't know what's going on, even though any idiot can see what's going on when they see upgraded models of their robot from the Jupiter 2.
None I've ever seen.
Well, well. Aren't we the poor cousin?
So then they notice video footage of Joey's old partner who gives clear indication what's going on here, but the characters still need to be slow for the movie to sustain its runtime.
When did he make magic?
I want this on the record. I am not willing to give up.
The footage is from the future, dummies. So if you notice, Smith steals something from one of the robots and the other characters don't notice him panically stuffing something sizable in his pocket. But then Will notices heavy activity somewhere in a giant garden thing, and then they learn that it's a badly rendered CGI monkey thing. So with that knowledge, we're to assume that the second ship belonged to some alien space monkey things. I'm not kidding about that.
This could be a creature from that alien ship.
Yeah, but this little guy's no pilot. Looks like a child.
And it holds no relevance to the plot, like at all. Now, this space monkey thing was in the 1960 series, but her name was Debbie the Bloop. But in this movie, they call her Blarp. Why? But what's worse is that the movie needs to spend an unnecessary amount of time with this thing just because it was in the series. And there's a difference between TV series and movies, and this was just a waste of monstrous time watching them try to feed the freaking monkey food bars. So after this shenanigans, a bunch of CGI spiders start attacking them out of the blue, and they attempt to fend them off and escape the ship. Now, despite how unexciting this scene was, it did have two pretty cool moments. One is with Will switching to holographic interface because the effect actually looks great even for 1998, and Joey's sick looking helmet thing. I mean, come on, look at that. It looks pretty cool, I have to admit. And Joey's actually contributing something that isn't complaining, acting like a boneheaded tough guy, or a horn dog. Hey, you know, Will, I don't see much movement difference in terms of speed when you're using holographic interface because the robot is moving the same way it was before. Why didn't the filmmakers just use CGI effects for this moment so that there's some sort of plausibility to Will's choice to interface holographically? I mean, the robot design looks great and I'm all for practical effects, but I don't know, this is just something that I noticed the second time I watched it. So they get ready to escape and Smith gets scratched by one of the spiders before they manage to make it out of there, but fortunately they get back on the Jupiter 2 and Marine scans one of the spider's limbs they managed to catch. We learn that their exterior helps them adapt in deep space. So, question, how did the spiders even get there to the ship? Did they fly off world to the Proteus? And why are they even there in the first place? Were they looking for something? Why would they plant egg sacs on there? Were they waiting for a certain someone to come in contact with them so that their existence makes sense? So West prepares to remote detonate the ship and the spiders seem to be attracted to heat. So when West turns on the Proteus' thrusters, they just up and leap like they're sexually attracted to the light/heat. But apparently this pisses off John and West doesn't care.
Major, stop!
That's one of your father's first rules of engagement.
That is a direct order.
I hate spiders.
Now, did West get this job as the pilot because he's good at his job or because he doesn't listen to orders? Sort of a contradictory reason for hiring someone you believe is good for the job if he doesn't even listen to his commander. Whatever. So he blows the Proteus up and the explosion is big enough to cause the Jupiter to have to escape it. So they land down on a nearby planet. They crash and are pretty much stuck with the exception of getting off the ground since half the core material is fried. But John has some words to exchange to West about not obeying his order about blowing up a ship that doesn't really have any reason to exist anyway after they literally went through all of it and found things that they were already looking for. So they have a very cliched and done to death cock measuring contest and Marine shows up and delivers some bad dialogue that fortunately does diffuse the tension between them. And she also might have found a way to get them off the planet. Now I'm skipping the characters hanging out with the alien monkey thing because it's a complete waste of my time. Moving on. So Joey gives Smith a bed because everyone's going to be on that ship for quite a while. And Smith attempts to reason with Joey to screw the Robinsons over. But Joey is a good guy who doesn't do bad guy things.
Sarcasm is the recourse of a weak mind.
No, not really, but a nice try, movie. So Joey and Judy have a very drawn out and disinteresting, boring love banter scene. Then the film thankfully moves on to the crew trying to figure out what the deal with this planet is. They learn of a giant bubble on the planet that is similar to the one they went through in space. Finally learning that they're doorways to different time zones.
You can't be serious. Time travel is impossible.
No, it's not. It's just improbable.
I both agree and disagree with that. It's more so time travel is improbable until you can conclude that it's impossible. And the reason why I say this is because when you go back in time and change something that changed the future, then you never would have gone back in time to do it in the first place. Time travel is you generally always going forward because whatever you do in the past won't matter because it only affects the future. Heck, Star Trek 2009 understood this. Until it didn't. This is also why I wouldn't throw shade at Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, because it reinforces that the characters are seeing two sides of their own time loop. Every choice that they made on either side progressed the loop, and that's all we need to know. Nothing else really matters. Now, I'm not going to criticize J.K. Rowling for how she utilizes time travel in a franchise where people fly on brooms and shoot lightning out of wands, but it worked for the story and it wasn't important except to serve the story. But this movie seems to not understand a single thing about time travel, and you're going to see why later.
What if the doorways aren't natural?
Well, this kind of phenomenon could only be produced naturally.
No.
What? What are you talking about? How do you know that? Since when did time manipulation be a natural component of a planet? The only way any sort of time manipulation can occur as a phenomenon is if someone is trying to change certain events by manipulating the past. A planet's natural component to mess with time is impossible and it makes no sense. Interstellar understood this years after this movie by establishing time travel rules by having the characters enter a wormhole and them knowing exactly what they were going to get into when they went through it. And it turns out the wormhole was implanted, and that was established earlier in the film anyway. Now there is an episode in the 1960s series of Lost in Space called Flight to the Future, where Smith and Will land on a planet that also manipulated time, but it was more so their perception of time, more like a time delusion. And guess what? Someone was manipulating time in that episode also. And there's a difference between time delusion and physical time manipulation, but as expected, this was just to serve the purpose of making the characters stupid so the film can sustain its runtime, and also maintain this artificial conflict between Will and John because of reasons. Foreshadowing. So John and Will act like they didn't just have a petty conflict a few minutes ago, and John gives his son dog tags promising that he'll come back. Yeah, you do that, Pops. Yeah, go into the time bubble after you just told your son that you're gonna come back. I mean, after all, it's not like you're going into the freaking future. So John and Joey say their goodbyes to their love interest and go through the time bubble. And this is where the movie completely falls apart. This is the point of proof that Akiva Goldsman did not care about what he was writing, as long as the plot just dragged its feet forward to the ending. So after they go through the time bubble, they notice that the Jupiter 2 exists in this timeline also. And hopefully that will lead into some clear-cut, obvious breadcrumbs, right? Well, before that can happen, Joey and John are attacked by a robot that looks kind of familiar. So back on present Jupiter 2, Smith is using Morse code and the robot magically figures this out for plot convenience.
That sounds like old Morse code.
What does it say?
Danger, Will Robinson. Danger.
And Will has a gun I guess his parents just let him have, and stupidly opens the door.
Someone was in danger.
And you believe them, right? So Smith easily convinces Will that they should just go and find Joey and his father, because he magically knows that they're in danger, I guess. He doesn't tell Maureen, Judy, or Penny. He specifically tells Will that they should look for them. Why? Oh no. I know why. Because stuff's gotta happen. Well, actually in the series, they had a pretty fun and believable back and forth dynamic and friendship. So of course they had to force that same dynamic here in this movie. You know, it's pretty amazing that a kid that apparently made some prototype time machine, reprogrammed a robot that almost killed all of his family, and then designed his own, is swayed by words from a terrorist spy. That's the very reason that they're all in this mess in the first place. So they both manage to sneak past the women, and as they're walking, the time bubble starts expanding, because I guess whatever is happening outside the bubble is affecting the future events within the time bubble, I think. But they go through the time bubble and into the future anyway. Back with John and Joey on the Jupiter 2 of the future, they wake up and see a scruffy looking brother just looking right at them.
I can still hear the women scream.
Who are you?
You don't reckon?
John. Really, dude? So the future Will, yeah, look, I'm saying it. It's the freaking Will of the future, okay? Who would it be? Smith is old. Obviously, it's not Joey. And I mean, the three women, do I have to figure that part out for you? But it takes John a minute, like a long minute, to figure this out. And then he's like, oh my god, it's my boy, because he pulls out the tags that he gave him, promising that he'd be back. So Will reveals that he created a time machine, you know, the one that he hinted at earlier in the movie, by using the hyperdrive. His goal is to apparently go back in time and prevent the Jupiter from ever launching, since the last time they did this, it's what stuck them here in the first place. So John's like, nah man, you can't do that, because you'll create a time distortion in the past, you know, like what's happening right now. But Will is mad at his dad for lying to him, because he never came back like he promised.
Years ago, what was it you said? I'm coming back, Will. I promise. You promised. And you never came home.
Which makes no sense, like at all, because the only reason John went through the time barrier is because Will created a time paradox where John doesn't come back. But hey, the characters need to be stupid or something. So what exactly is Will's specific plan anyway for preventing the Jupiter's launch? The only thing he can do is literally kill his own family, or maybe cripple the Jupiter 2 since he knows it so well, I think. Maybe that's what he's gonna do, I don't know. Hey Johnny boy, how about you tell Will that it's Smith's fault that you guys even went off course and the mission went south? Or how about you go back in time and prevent the last pilot's assassination or something? Maybe he would have put a hole in Smith's head after, you know, he tried to kill the family. I don't know, seems better than just telling Will about time distortions. I mean, he's not listening anyway because he's mad at you. So does Will intend to stay there in the past after he goes back? You know, just live among his past self and what, that's it, after he prevents the Jupiter 2 from launching? Okay, so if he knows that life will be unsustainable in 20 years, does he not care? Does he think that his dad is lying about this? Will he go to Alpha Prime? Again, what is his plan? Is he just gonna let Earth die as his father is trying to create a hypergate to save everyone on Earth? So I guess if he succeeds, the Global Sedition will get what they want. Okay, got it. Hey Goldsman, do you remember what you just wrote earlier? No, you didn't. But he does have the core material, so they got to get that back to the Jupiter 2 anyway, so they're trying to figure that out. Okay, so Will and Smith continue going into the Jupiter 2, and apparently more words by Smith will make Will stupid, and he just voice activates the gun to just be accessible to anybody, including Smith.
A brief lesson in survival. In this world or any other, never trust anyone.
Kid, stay in school. Like, seriously. So Smith apprehends future Will, John, and Joey, and also hijacks the robot, which I assume he magically knew was there and already planned on using it? Sure, movie, I guess. So Smith readies to return to Earth until... Uh-oh.
Never fear. Smith is here.
That's right, future Smith is...
Spider-Man does whatever a spider can.
Okay, so I'm gonna back up real quick and ask, if younger Will interacts with his future self, does that mean that older Will is no longer mad at his father since he shortly reunited with his father in the past anyway? Why doesn't he remember going through the time bubble with Smith and seeing all of this? But he remembers his father saying that he was coming back? Kinda convenient, huh? But it gets even better because apparently Smith doesn't even remember encountering his self from the past in this moment and throws himself out the window with the intention of killing his past self, which makes no sense, because if he kills his past self, then how in God's name is he even alive to do it in the first place? But hey, the character's gotta be stupid to sustain the movie's runtime, so it's cool, I guess. And also, how did this surrogate father-son relationship with Smith and Will happen after Smith just stole Will's gun in the past and put it to his freaking head? Was this supposed to be like fan service or something? I don't know, but I can see why the fans are pissed now. It just don't make no sense. So after Smith wipes out his own existence, he goes away and stands on a thing for some reason, or I guess until the script needs him back, I guess. Younger Will attempts to apprehend and rehabilitate his future version of the robot he created.
Robot, do you remember me? Do you remember what I taught you about friendship? Logic. Act with your heart.
Listen to your heart when he's calling for you. Listen to your heart.
I guess Spider-Smith doesn't care and he just lets it all happen. I don't know. Where did he go anyway? Who cares? The robot is good again. Yay! He helps them escape and John does the noble sacrifice crap and he and Joey make up.
You know me, Don. I know you never wanted to take this job, but I think you're gonna turn out to be a grade A babysitter. Oh.
He tends to stop Spider-Smith from getting to Will to finish the time machine. So Will gives him a weapon to use against Smith, but is he gonna kill his future version of his son though? That's the only way to prevent him from going back to past Earth, but hey, what do I know? So Judy fires fireworks in the sky to be a beacon for the dudes. And also Human Smith is alive. Well, Spider-Smith, I bet you feel like an idiot now because your past self is still alive and you wouldn't be able to exist if your past self hadn't survived the very fall that you used to kill your past self with. And that's a tangle web that you can't get yourself out of, eh? So back with future Will and Papa Arachnic Douchebag. Will remembers in the script that he has to up and out of nowhere ask again about how his mom and two sisters died, even though he just told his father how they died. And apparently Will has asked this many times before and decides to just bring it up again for no reason.
Tell me again, old monster, how did the girls die?
We've been over this before, son.
So apparently the spiders Will thought remained on the planet never actually resurfaced and he never actually saw them. Okay, questions. Again, how did the spiders even get on the Proteus? Did they control the space alien monkey ship themselves? Or were they mutated people spiders before that just got eaten by their own babies on the Proteus, as we'll see later? Or is this a space alien monkey planet and the spiders hitched a ride with them? Or just hung out on the Proteus for no reason? And if that's the case, why did a single alien space monkey vessel even contact the Proteus in the first place? And also, Will learns that the spiders killed his family, but why would you go along with what a giant mutant man spider thing would even tell him anyway? Apparently, even in the future, Smith could say anything to Will and Will would be stupid enough to believe him, and yet Will is mad at his father for not listening to him. Okay, gotcha. So Smith spills the clear-cut, obvious, could be seen from 1,000 miles away beans that he killed Smith's family. And because only one person can be sent back in time, Smith plans to be the one to return to the Earth of the past and take over the world with his super spider race. I guess I can understand why Smith wants to take over Earth. I mean, the sedition did screw him over, so some indirect revenge makes sense. Except life on Earth is going to be unsustainable in 20 years. I guess he forgot, or what, he's just going to live it up till then? I don't know. But John to the rescue!
You should have killed me when you had the chance.
Well, yeah, duh. Hey John, go back in the time machine and save your last pilot so that this one can actually kill Smith. So Smith overpowers John and gets ready to eat him.
I think there's time for a snack before my trip.
But why didn't he eat the future Will instead of just, you know, throwing him? I guess Smith assumed that he aimed for the debris, but if he was hungry for a little snacky snack, he could have just eaten Will. I mean, Will looks like a fresh, healthy looking specimen. Nah, whatever, move on. So our hero John is ready to be devoured until John cuts Smith's egg sac. And it's a good thing that Smith forgot all about his etymology, cause those baby suckers eat his butt up. And John pushes Smith in the debris, and that's the end of future Dr. Smith. John saves future Will while the past Will, Joey, and Smith make it back to the Jupiter 2 in time. Maureen learns that her hubby is now in the enclosed time bubble and learn that it's too late to save him. Sad, but it makes sense. So the crew gets ready to dip off that planet since it's falling apart due to the time distortions. And I love how just none of the characters are showing any emotion for losing both a father and a husband that they weren't able to save. But the Jupiter 2 doesn't have enough power anyway because they still don't have the second core material. I guess Joey forgot that he said that earlier, but that doesn't matter either because a meteor crashes right through Jupiter, killing everyone in it, including Will. Kid Will, yes. Kid Will is dead. Which apparently means not only does Will no longer exist, but apparently he doesn't even need to be alive for the machine to exist, and for his father to go back through the time barrier, and for future Will to use the machine to bring John back in time before the ship leaves the planet, and use it to send John back in time before the meteor hit the Jupiter, which also doesn't make sense because how can Will take John back in time but Will doesn't even exist? But hey, everyone's together and happy again, so yippee yay!
With us!
John. Really? So they use the planet's gravity by flying through the planet, which actually looks a lot more dangerous than if they just tried again but avoid more asteroids if they flew up. But this movie ends with the special effects thing so that they can make it out safely and that the movie can end with a big bang. They make it off the planet and they hyperdrive out there and leave room for sequels that'll never happen. The end.
This is just all space battles and lots of explosions and really dumb stuff.
And located basically roughly in one set.
Yeah,
the ship. I mean,
that's right.
Did they cheap it out? Oh boy.
So I hope you enjoy me ripping this whole movie into space molecules. This is on the so bad it's good tier of bad movies for me, and I can't believe that the filmmakers actually thought that they had a franchise starter on their hands. Now, there are some positives. I did enjoy the special effects. I enjoyed Gary Oldman's hammy performance, and the score is nostalgic but still well done. But I feel like the filmmakers should have just used a time machine and leaped to the year 2009 and study how Star Trek 2009 managed to get a trilogy greenlit and still follow through. But time travel isn't possible right now until it will be improbable and then be back to being impossible. But this franchise definitely is truly lost in movie space. But they did make a Netflix series and I'm pretty sure that one's better. I haven't checked it out yet, but I do plan on it. But if you like my content, leave a like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the future. Peace out and love y'all.